And Elena, that big debate between François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy has been covered internationally, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, obviously the fine economic details aren't that interesting for an international audience, but just the amount they managed to insult one another is. Now, Le Jour, the French newspaper in Lebanon, rather, has got Sarkozy and Hollande pugnacity and virulence as a front page. They highlight some of the tougher exchanges, like Hollande saying to Sarkozy, "You've nominated all your friends to top jobs within the French government and other public bodies," and Sarkozy responding by saying that was slanderous. Now, the article says they both had some quite clear strategies there. Hollande wanted to force Sarkozy to defend his unpopular record, and Sarkozy wanted to get Hollande on the back foot by saying things like he had no lessons to learn from a party that had wanted to back Dominique Strauss-Kahn, by essentially going for pretty low blows, they say. But they point out the French and indeed a lot of the international press have been surprised by just how unsedate and impolite that argument was, how much they really did go for one another. And what we need to remember, according to The Guardian, is that it was the most bruising verbal standoff in 30 years of French politics. That's how they've headlined their piece. They say it was aggressive, verbally violent and savage, both accusing the other of lying. Hollande, they say in that article, clearly managed to psychologically destabilise a rather awkward and nervous, really, looking Sarkozy. They say in the Guardian piece that it looked like he was running scared by the very end, clearly realising he'd been beaten. At least that's what the Guardian reckon. They're also critical of Sarkozy's attempt to insist, of course, on subjects of immigration, saying things like if Muslim voters are coming from North Africa were given the right to vote in French municipal elections like François Hollande wants, then that means they'd be pushing forward religiously sectarian issues. Of course, that does not go down well with a left-wing paper like The Guardian, who say it's outrageous that he should try and make that a subject of debate. That's also shocked the Belgian paper Le Soir, which has got the Front National as the centre of the Sarkozy-Hollande debate on their front page today. And also in The Independent, they're taking an interesting look at this, saying that really what the debate showed was that whoever becomes president after this election is going to have to reassemble and bring together an incredibly divided and polarised France. There's, if you like, three different Frances, they say. Marine Le Pen's far-right electorate, the electorate of the left and the electorate of the right. What this election has done, the whole campaign, The Independent says, is just drive some pretty big wedges up through the French public, really make big divisions clear in the public sphere, and whoever becomes president is going to have to find a way to become president of all those French people, and whoever it is, they're going to find half the country hates him.
Okay, well, let's move on to another story now. The Chinese dissident Chen, Guangcheng, we were talking about him in the news bulletin. He's left the US embassy in Beijing, but the circumstances are somewhat unclear.
Yes, we're getting all kinds of contradictory reports, but there's an interesting piece in The Atlantic asking if the US has really let him down. I mean, they, of course, when they were writing that, had just heard that he had said he was threatened by the Chinese authorities, who said they would hurt or even kill his wife if he did not leave the embassy. So why didn't the US take a stronger line on trying to protect him when he was in their embassy, they say? Is it something that Barack Obama should be embarrassed about? Well, they point out there's a few reasons why they couldn't. It's a major diplomatic summit starting this week between the US and China, with important issues on the table like currency pricing in North Korea that they don't want disrupted. Also, his wife and child were in the hands of Chinese authorities, and the US just didn't have a way of getting them to safety. So while it looks bad for Obama, they say there's not much that they could necessarily have done at the US in this situation. And also, of course, will the Chinese then hold up the end of this bargain that they supposedly struck with Hillary Clinton, that he won't now be persecuted? Well, The Independent says the precedents are not very good. Over the Beaujolais case, if you remember, his former police governor in the state of Chongqing went and took refuge in the US consulate there after falling out with him, and he now, since being released into the hands of Chinese authorities a few weeks ago, seems to have disappeared.
Okay, and finally, you're also looking at some news from the US on that ongoing Rupert Murdoch saga.
Yes, very briefly, a US senator has asked the Senate Committee on Culture and Broadcasting Licenses to investigate whether or not Murdoch is a decent person to hold the licence he has in the US to run Fox News. Now, that Senate Committee could effectively, in practice, take that licence away if they wanted to. Quite worrying for Rupert Murdoch.
Okay, well, thanks very much indeed, Elena, for that whiz round the international papers this Thursday.